Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the process where we're going to be getting buckets for the November 19th, 2016 NBA slate. My name is Stephen Porter. You can find me on Twitter at Stephen Porter Jr. We've got a 9-game slate tonight in the NBA on most, I think, both of the main DFS sites. The bigger contests are only 8 games, with the Houston and Utah game not included. I'm going to hit on that game real quick anyway because I'm playing some cash games on those alternate slates where you can play all. So the Utah Jazz are heading on the road to take on the Houston Rockets. Total is 201. I think this is kind of an interesting spot where, like if you play NFL, it's a pretty common theme to play the third. They're going to have a tough matchup tonight with the Jazz. Jazz have 100 even defensive rating and are only playing at a 92.6, much limiting fantasy across the board for the most part. I know James Harden is 7K on Draftkings. I just going to be better point per dollar plays, even though he's kind of always got like that 50 usage rate with Beverly in the lineup in the last game, but I just don't think there's any really attractive plays on the Houston side. Gordon Hayward played 41 minutes. Easier matchup tonight with Trevor Ariza. I think this is a strong bounce back spot. The Kings points aired into about 40 minutes. But in this matchup, going up against Houston, I think he are playable. I would really want to play Trey Lyles, but his not there. I think he's certainly in play. Hood or Dante Exum. Of a function of Hay 26.1% usage rate and plays in the mid 30s most nights, but he's a great option. So if I said yesterday that he is interested, we're getting a bad storm coming through here, and I think it's okay. All right, we're going to try to get back into this. I covered the Utah and Houston game quickly. Pretty much not anything of interest there for me outside of Gordon Hayward, Rudy Gobert, and maybe Trey Lyles. But I do think it's interesting to play in the early lock contests and then for the most part fade the game outside of those three guys. Moving on to the main slate, we have the Golden State Warriors going on the road as 6-point favorites to face the Milwaukee Bucks. Totals at 216. This game is interesting because Steve Kerr came out and said yesterday that he wants to possibly get his guys some rest in this game. Haven't heard any news on who might rest. If either of the two usage leaders, we got Steph Curry at 29.3 and Kevin Durant at 28.3. If either of these guys sits, the other one figures to probably jump up to mid to upper 30s in usage, and you just lock and load whichever one that's going to be. If both of them would sit, I think Patrick McCaw is going to be the guy that you want to take a look at. He was awesome in the preseason, very efficient, definitely able to get to the bucket, can definitely hit some shots, and then he'll see a ton of minutes and a ton of usage. So you're going to have to play this one by ear. If they all play and nobody sits, I think Durant might be the most interesting, just because he's still putting up more peripheral statistics than Steph Curry is. But again, it's kind of tough to go one way or another right now with Golden State. There's going to be some plays one way or another. We know they're going to get some buckets, but it's going to depend on what they do. I think Clay is still interesting as a tournament option. Used him a little bit last night, not much. He'll probably be a little more owned now that he finally broke through a little bit last night. But he would also probably stand to see a bump if either of Curry or Durant would be out. So let's say either one sits out. I think both of the other two are in play, and then Patrick McCaw becomes a more interesting play, but definitely a cash lock if they would both sit. I'm not really looking to play Draymond Green, 15.8% usage rate. He could definitely take a bump up, and I think is worth tournament consideration if either or both of those guys sit out. But again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because it's just tough to tell right now. So we'll jump over to the Bucks on the other side of the ball here. This is going to be a pace-up game for them. Giannis had a bit of a letdown game last night against the Heat, but it's going to be a much different matchup. The Heat are pretty good defensively, and he saw a lot of Josh Richardson, and Josh Richardson is actually a really strong defender. Josh Richardson had a really nice net rating against the Bucks last night. It's especially if Kevin Durant sits, there's really nobody to match up with Giannis in this game. I think Giannis will be back in play as a cash and tournament game consideration. Probably a really nice tournament play because people are not going to want to go back to him after he kind of flamed out a little bit last night. But Golden State's not been great on the defensive end. 104.6 defensive rating. That's actually worse than Milwaukee, who's 102.5. Milwaukee's been better on the boards. And like I mentioned, this will be a little bit of a pace-up game. Golden State gets off about 4 more possessions a game than the Bucks do. So Giannis is definitely a cash or tournament consideration. Jabari Parker has a 26.4% usage rate on the year. Again, same kind of thing against Milwaukee for him. Against Miami, they saw some pretty tough defense, but he could definitely bounce back in this spot and should go lower owned. I think he is also in tournament or cash consideration tonight in the highest total game on the slate. I mentioned Tony Snell last time. He's sort of interesting as a punt. Seeing about 32 minutes a game, only sees like a 14% usage rate, so there's definitely a floor there. And the big man rotation is going to be interesting. It's going to be tough to peg with who's going to get the minutes. It's been Henson recently. Don't think any of these guys are going to be interesting or options at all for cash, but definitely going to be interesting in tournaments. I think you could go with Henson or Greg Monroe. Greg Monroe did not play at all last game, but there's certainly a possibility that he kind of comes back, sees 20 to 25 minutes in this game, and nobody is going to play him. So either of those guys are kind of long shot tournament options. Definitely not in play for cash. Giannis and Jabari in cash for this game, and then Snell, Henson, or Monroe if you want to kind of punt for tournaments. Next highest total game on the slate is the Phoenix Suns going to the Philadelphia 76ers. Total's 212. Phoenix is 2.5-point favorites. Phoenix is just absolutely maddening right now. You don't know what they're going to do from there's just no consistency here. Earl Watson kind of just it's a crapshoot. So the way that I'm going to attack the Phoenix Suns, because we know there's going to be plays here, we know they're going to score a bunch of points. Alan Williams is probably going to be popular. He's still minimum price at center. Tyson Chandler is definitely out tonight, so it's going to be Len and Williams manning the center spot. I don't think you can play Bledsoe. I don't want to pay for Booker either. I think I think what you want to do is just play the cheaper guys in tournaments and hope that they hit ceiling games. So I'm interested in Alan Williams at min salary in tournaments, and he's probably going to be the most popular after he put up, I think, 42 DK points. I think he's actually a cash consideration too because Chandler's out, and he's probably going to see I mean, at the least, probably like 18 to 20 minutes and could still get you, your 18 DraftKings points that you need there. Jared Dudley is very interesting. I think he's a good basketball player. Watched him a lot in Washington last year. Not the best athlete, but he really makes up for that with being savvy. He's always in the right spot and manages to get production in the rebound, assist, and defensive categories because he's just a smart player. And then he's actually a very good shooter. Should see plenty of open shots against Philadelphia's terrible defense. Their 107.7 defensive rating on the year. Alex Len is probably another cash game target tonight, especially on FanDuel where his price hasn't moved at all. It's tough to, again, peg where the minutes are going to be. He almost double-doubled in the first quarter last night and then just didn't play anymore because that's kind of Earl Watson's style right now. So interesting fade in tournaments, but I could definitely see going back there in cash. There's a couple studs that we can play here tonight. I wouldn't be opposed to maybe playing Len, Williams, Jared Dudley, and Knight, and hoping that you get the majority of, let's see, their team total is 107.5 points. If you can get the majority of their scoring with those four guys, then you're good to go. And then you can just stack these studs around those four guys. TJ Warren is questionable for tonight. He sat out the second half with an illness last night. Not sure if he's going to play or not. Again, definitely need to watch that. So Chandler's definitely out. TJ Warren might sit out, and then I think we'll see mostly PJ Tucker and Dudley at the 3. Tucker played, I think, 39 minutes last night and barely got there. He's a low usage guy, but he could definitely put up some production tonight. So the 5 guys that I have written down, I'm not going to play Bledsoe, just too expensive. I mean, he could get there, don't know, not going to trust it, not going to play Booker, not going to play Warren, even if he does play. So I'm going to roll with Allen Williams, Jared Dudley, Alex Len, Brandon Knight, and PJ Tucker. On to the other side of the ball, Joel Embiid kind of banged up his ankle in the last game against Minnesota. He is questionable for tonight. If he doesn't play, there's definitely going to be some major usage opening up. We'll have Ilyasova, Dario Saric, and Rashawn Holmes, I think, as the most interesting guys there. Holmes will probably split the center minutes straight down the middle with Jahlil Okafor. Okafor's probably going to play about 24 minutes, and then Holmes is probably going to play about 24 minutes. Holmes is cheaper, probably more upside at the price point. Obviously, Okafor is a better player. I think either of those guys would be reasonable targets in cash if Embiid is out. I like Ersan Ilyasova or Dario Saric tonight in tournaments. You just kind of have to peg which one's going to get more minutes at the 4. It's been Saric lately. Who knows what it's going to be tonight, but it's definitely a great matchup. Phoenix is one of the most fantasy-friendly teams in the NBA, 106.4 defensive rating and a 104.35 pace. I mean, they're running up and down the floor, and they're giving up points in bunches. So there's definitely going to be some plays that's just kind of hard to peg. I'm probably not going to play Embiid. His price has just gotten too high for me to consider. So next game, we've got. This is actually an interesting one. We got Charlotte Hornets as 3.5-point favorites going on the road to face the Pelicans. We've got the total of 207.5 here. We saw last night Drew Holiday return. Holiday posted a 37.8 usage rate in his 23 minutes. Kind of hit on him as a tournament play. Didn't actually play him last night. I thought he was a good play. Didn't do it. Should have. I'm willing to play him in cash or tournaments tonight, assuming that he, 1, comes off the bench, and then 2 is good. Is actually going to play at least your 24 plus minutes. With that kind of usage rate and his kind of individual talent, if he's coming off the bench and matching up with Ramon Sessions, he's probably going to get, 20 points, 20 real points again, give you some rebounds and assists and defensive statistics. I think think he's a reasonable bet for 30 plus DraftKings points with a ceiling of maybe 40 to 45 if he's playing 24 to 30 minutes. He wasn't away from the team due to injury, so he's still conditioned, should be able to go on a back-to-back, but definitely watch the news and confirm that he's going to play. This game tips at 7 o'clock, so we should get confirmation before lock. Interested in him in cash, interested in Anthony Davis in cash and tournaments. Again, saw Anthony back up to that 37.6% usage last night. Like him better with Drew coming off the bench because they can kind of dominate shots with the first and second unit and then get a little run together to close out the game. His price didn't move at all in DraftKings, still 10.8K. It's a tougher matchup with Charlotte. Charlotte's been pretty good on the defensive end, 99.1 defensive rating, but they just individually don't have anybody to match up with Anthony Davis. They've been decent on the glass, but I think Brow is a really strong double-double candidate. We saw him actually pick a bunch of assists last game. Wouldn't be surprised to see that continue. And he's always in play for 5+ defensive statistics. Not worried about Frank Kaminsky, not worried about Marvin Williams, not worried about anybody they're going to throw at him. A little bit of worry on his minutes on a back-to-back, but I think he's probably good to go, and he's one of the guys that you definitely want to get into your lineups with all of the value that's opening up from those Phoenix and Philly guys, and if we see somebody sit in the Golden State game, there's going to be some value there too. So definitely interested in Brow and Drew for cash and or tournaments. Tim Frazier actually still played 33 minutes last night. He played 8 minutes next to Drew. Still saw a 20.5 usage rate, and his price has corrected for the fact that Drew is back. He's an interesting play, deserves consideration. Not sure I'll make it, but wouldn't try to talk you off of using him. Terrence Jones still saw 31 minutes last night with a 19.8% usage rate. Again, this is going to be a little bit tougher matchup. Portland is just awful, and Charlotte's one of the better teams in the NBA. So I wouldn't necessarily expect to see so many rebounds in defensive statistics from Terrence Jones, and you never know what Gentry is going to do with his rotations here. So I wouldn't play Terrence in cash, but I definitely think he's an interesting tournament target, especially over on FanDuel where he's still only 5K. Moving on to the other side of the ball, the only two guys I'm really interested in are Kemba Walker at his 30% usage rate on the season, and Nick Batum at 21.2. He's actually 20.2 usage for the year, but over the last 4 games, he's seen a little bit of a bump up to 35 minutes per game and 21.2 usage rate. I think they're both strong cash and tournament targets. This game should stay pretty close. It's only a 3.5 point spread. New Orleans is definitely going to be a more competitive team with Drew back running the second unit. So Kemba and Batum should both probably see 34, 35 minutes plus and get up plenty of shots. And I think they have reasonable matchups, especially if Frazier and Etuan Moore start again for the Pelicans. So I think that you can definitely stack this game. I think Kemba Batum for Charlotte and then bring it back with Brow and Drew from the other side. That's very viable. Frank Kaminsky deserves mentioning. He's been playing about 22 minutes and seen a 24% usage rate over the last 4. He's pretty cheap on DraftKings at 4K. I probably wouldn't try to talk you off of him in cash or tournaments. I don't know that I'll use him at all. Probably looking to play guys in that Phoenix game instead, but like I said, deserves mentioning at the very least. Moving on to the next game. Surprisingly high total here in the Chicago Bulls and Clippers game. The Chicago Bulls are 7-point road underdogs visiting Clippers with a total of 204. Both of these teams are very strong defensively. Clippers are now down to the second best defensive team in the league, but they're still posting a 95.6% defensive rating. And what we've kind of seen is that their starting unit is still playing strong defense. Last night they gave up a ton of points to, I think it was like 115 points to the Kings, but their starters still posted defensive ratings in the mid-80s, and it was their bench that got absolutely torched last night. So with that said, I'd probably want to target guys from Chicago's bench. Not sure if Rondo's going to play tonight. He's questionable. He went through shoot around. He might be back for this game. If Rondo plays, it's going to be tough. I don't really want to play Rondo. If he's going to play, I don't want to play Jerry and Grant. Actually, I don't want to play Jerry and Grant either way. And I probably don't want to play Nikola Mirotic, even though Mirotic is an interesting tournament play at only 4.3K at probably really low ownership. Um, and like I said, he's got a really good matchup with the Clippers' terrible bench. If I'm looking at anybody in cash from Chicago, which I'm probably not, it's going to be Jimmy Butler or Robin Lopez. Jimmy Butler's the true alpha here, 26.3 usage rate. Played 38 minutes last game. So he's a tough individual matchup with Luke Richard Mbah Moute. And again, Chicago's probably just going to see a lower offensive efficiency in general playing against the Clippers. So I'm not falling over myself to roster Jimmy Butler. Definitely think Dwayne Wade is interesting as a tournament punt just because no one's ever going to play him. And he's got a 26.9 usage rate in 32 minutes. Definitely not a guy I'm ever going to look to in cash, but like I said, a guy that maybe can get you 36 to 40 DraftKings points in a ceiling game where nobody's playing him. Also has a nice individual matchup with JJ Redick. So to recap, Mirotic and Wade, interesting tournament options. Definitely not playing either in cash. If I'm playing anybody in cash from Chicago, it's going to be Jimmy Butler or Robin Lopez. Lopez has been seeing a lot of minutes, 34 minutes and a 19.8% usage rate in the last 4, and he's going to need to stay on the court to match up with DeAndre Jordan at the 5. So could definitely pay off in cash games. Don't think he has the ceiling that I'd want to see in a tournament target. The Clippers have a 110 offensive rating on the year, 95 defensive rating, like we mentioned. They're just not great targets in this game. I think Chicago's a really good defensive team. I don't think this game has a chance of getting to 204. The 204 total should be more of kind of a slow-paced slugfest. But if you want to play anybody from the Clippers, I definitely think that Blake Griffin is the guy to target. His price is a little bit down on DraftKings. I think it's 8.3 or 8.4K, and he's got a 27.4 usage rate on the year. Chris Paul's got a 23.3% usage rate. He'd actually be more interesting if Rondo played because Rondo is such a terrible defender. I'm less interested in Chris Paul if Jerry and Grant plays, but he's still probably going to get it done. Either way, he's playing really well this year. Hasn't played well over the last couple of games, but I think that's more of an aberration than anything. Should return to his normal efficiency tonight. JJ Redick has really played well lately. Has a 21.5 usage rate. A guy you could play in tournaments, but I'll never play him in cash just because if he's not hitting shots, he's not giving you any kind of production. And if you followed along, I don't play DeAndre Jordan very often. But if he's going to play well, it's probably going to be in, again, like a kind of slugfest game where he sees maybe 16 to 18 rebounds and gets a bunch of putbacks or easy shots at the rim. But I just don't like the individual matchup with Robin Lopez, and I'd probably rather go elsewhere at center on the slate. Moving on to the next game, we've got a total of, I'm going to skip that game, a total of 200 in the Minnesota Timberwolves traveling to face the Memphis Grizzlies. Timberwolves are 3-point favorites here. We've seen this team match up already. On the Minnesota side of the ball, Andrew Wiggins is their obvious usage leader. He's got a 30% usage rate. But this is a tough matchup for him. His price has really skyrocketed up to, I think, 7.8K on DraftKings. And Memphis has been playing pretty slow, playing pretty solid defense, really solid on the boards. I don't think you're going to see Wiggins get to those 10 rebounds again tonight. I think it's more likely that he sees maybe like 4 rebounds and like 26 real points. I think he's probably going to be in like the mid-30s, maybe 40 DraftKings points tonight. I don't think he's a great tournament or cash target tonight. I'd rather go elsewhere on the slate. I think it's time to get off of him in a tough matchup where his price has risen. Kind of same thing with Karl Anthony Towns. He's got a 8.1 price tag, but he's second on the team with 26.8% usage. Not too interested in him. Could get you there, but again, I'd probably rather go up to a Whiteside or down to maybe punting with Len or Williams on the slate. I just don't think he makes sense in this game. Not going to play Ricky Rubio pretty much ever. I tried to play him against Philadelphia in the most cake of all matchups, and he looked completely hapless. Just like did not play a good game. Maybe he gets more locked in and more focused in this game against a real opponent, but I'm certainly not going to be betting on it. The two probably guys that I want to target from Minnesota in tournaments, like I don't think I'm going to play anybody in cash from Minnesota, but the two tournament options for me are going to be Zach LaVine. Nobody's going to be playing him because he had a bad game against Philadelphia last time out, but his price is only 5.9K, and in his 2 games against Memphis so far this season, I think he's averaging like 36 Draftkings points. So I think there's opportunity here to get him at a low ownership, and maybe he gets you 6x plus. And then I think Gorgie Jang kind of in the same range there. Hasn't been playing very well as of late, but he is averaging 38 DraftKings points in the 2 matchups so far with Memphis. And it's kind of a good matchup for him. He probably will do better in a kind of slower paced slugfest game like this, where they need bigger guys to help on the glass. So I think Jang and LaVine are interesting in tournaments. Not really looking anywhere else for Minnesota. Moving on to the Memphis side of the ball, their 2 clear leaders are Marc Gasol, 28.8% usage, and Mike Conley, 23.5% usage. If this game's going to stay close, and it's projected to, I think both of these guys are in play. I think you could play them in cash or tournaments. Minnesota's been pretty bad on the defensive end, got a 105.9 defensive rating on the season. Memphis hasn't been great offensively, but obviously they could tick up a little bit in a good matchup here. Definitely should be pace up for them as well. And I think it's going to be competitive. I think they'll see mid 30s minutes. It's back to back for them, but they didn't play at all last night. Played I think 24 minutes against Dallas, who we'll get to later, and how awful they are. So hopefully they should be rested up and ready to go. They're also at home, which helps. So I think Gasol and Conley can be targeted in cash or tournaments. Not really looking at anybody else here. Chandler Parsons is back and kind of taking minutes on the wing. Just kind of makes things too muddy for me to target outside of Gasol or Conley. Another interesting stack here, if this game should maybe stay close and go into overtime, kind of like we saw last night with Toronto and Denver, is playing Gasol and Conley on the one side of the ball, and then bringing it back, like I said, with LaVine and Jang on the other side. I guess you could play Wiggins in tournament because it's just with his efficiency in shots. Recently, he's been getting there. He's got a much more attractive price point on FanDuel than DraftKings, but like I'm probably just not going to go there. If he burns me, he burns me tonight. Moving on to the next game, we've got a total of 197.5 with the Boston Celtics traveling to visit the Detroit Pistons. Pistons are 3.5-point favorites here. Again, back-to-back for them too. Pretty much everybody tonight is on a back-to-back. Pistons got absolutely worked by the Cavs last night. Cavs came out and played really good team basketball last night. But this is definitely a profitable spot for us to get on Detroit. Boston's been really bad without Jay Crowder and Al Horford. They shouldn't have them again tonight. If I'm going to target guys on Detroit's side, normally I'd want to target Andre Drummond here because Boston's so soft at the rim. Like Kelly Olynyk is trash. I hate Kelly Olynyk. Amir Johnson's not great. Tyler Zeller should have started last night. He didn't start last night. Played well in his minutes. I doubt he'll start tonight against Drummond, but if he would, it would kind of take me off Drummond a little bit. But again, Drummond should be able to do whatever he wants here. But the problem with Drummond is he's been injured, hasn't played 30 minutes at all in the last 3 contests since he's come back from injury. And I just am worried about him too much to play him in cash. Great tournament option because I think he's got serious 20-20 upside tonight if he's feeling a little bit better and sees into the mid-30s because he's going to see no resistance at the rim. Excuse me. So good tournament target in Andre Drummond. If I'm playing somebody from cash, I want to go back to Tobias Harris. 22.2 usage rate on the year. Gets a good matchup. Like I said, Crowder, who is probably either their best or second best defender, is not going to play, and he's actually going to be an awesome tournament target tonight too because nobody played him. He had a bad game last night, so I doubt people will be looking to get on him tonight. Has a serious 2010 upside with some defensive statistics. In mid 30s, Stan Van Gundy is not afraid to run his guys 38, 39, 40 minutes out there in competitive games, which this game should be. So I definitely like Tobias in cash or tournaments. Same thing with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. We know he's going to see probably mid to upper 30s. Don't love his ceiling matched up with Avery Bradley because I respect Avery Bradley as an individual defender, but a guy who could see 30, 35 DraftKings points. Marcus Morris, interesting tournament target here, has played really poorly lately. Don't want to go there in cash just because of the minutes and his usage is trending down, but nobody's going to play him. Only 5K on DraftKings, could get you to 2010 reasonably, and you'll get up get a leg up on the field there because, like I said, nobody's going to play him. Ish Smith. Again, a guy I don't really like playing, especially when Drummond's in the lineup, because Drummond ends up taking a lot of shots. But a tournament consideration, I guess. If you followed along, you know that I think Isaiah Thomas is always a guy to fade, and you could do it with Ish Smith tonight. Could play a bunch of minutes and see some efficiency, but I'm not going to play him probably anywhere. I'll look elsewhere tonight. So if I'm playing somebody in cash from Tobias, okay. If I'm playing somebody from Detroit in cash, it's going to be Tobias or Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and I also think both of those guys are good tournament targets, and I also think Drummond, Ish, and probably Marcus Morris all make for tournament targets as well. John Lure's price is too high for me, but I mean, he could get you there. He's been playing well recently. Moving on to Boston's side of the ball, I think Isaiah Thomas is in a good bounce back spot here. I think he was probably popular last night. He's still seeing crazy usage in the mid 30s. His price came down a little bit, and he's a good tournament target. I'm not going to play him in cash because there's other guys I'd rather play. I'd rather play Drew in cash than Isaiah Thomas, but it's going to be a much easier matchup tonight for him than it was last night. So I'll probably play a couple tournament lineups with maybe like a Tobias and KCP, maybe Tobias and Drummond, and then bring it back with Isaiah Thomas on the other end. Avery Bradley is a good cash target. He's seen a crazy floor with his rebounding prowess as of late, playing really high minutes. Should get 35, 36 minutes plus, maybe 40 minutes in this matchup if it's tight, which it should be. And he's seen a 25% usage rate without Crowder or Horford in the lineup. So definitely a strong cash floor, and I think he's got upside enough for tournaments too, even though his price point is pretty high. I'm not playing Olenek, but I really want to because we've seen Andre Drummond just be terrible on defense. He gives up a ton of fantasy points. We picked on him successfully with Tristan Thompson last night. There's probably going to be a guy in the front court that gets there tonight for Boston. Not sure if it's going to be Kelly Olynyk. Not sure if it's going to be Amir Johnson. Not sure if it's going to be Tyler Zeller. Who knows? I think especially on DraftKings, the best way to go is to just punt with Tyler Zeller. Maybe you can get a leg up in tournaments if everybody plays Allen Williams and he does not play well. If he sees maybe like 18 minutes off the bench and gives you like 8 points and 6 rebounds. And you could leverage that with like Alex Len at center and then Tyler Zeller as a min-priced center in your util spot and differentiate and leverage there. But it's just tough to call with Boston's front court right now. Definitely not going to play any of them in cash, but I think all three of them are just interesting tournament plays with ceiling because of the matchup. So if I'm playing anybody in cash from Boston, it's going to be Avery Bradley. I think both Avery Bradley and Isaiah Thomas are interesting in tournaments, as is all their front court players. And another thing to monitor is Marcus Smart. He injured his ankle last night. He is on the trip to Detroit. Should probably play in this game, but if he doesn't, Jaylen Brown and Terry Rozier should see interesting usage off the bench. Terry Rozier would probably be the guy that I would look to there. I think Rozier's a good player. I think he'd probably have the ball in his hands more, and I don't mind the matchup at all with any of Detroit's backup guards. Moving on to the next game, going to be the Miami Heat traveling to face my Washington Wizards. Totals at 197. Don't know what to do with this game. Bradley Beal came back in the last game, played 29 minutes, saw a 21.5 usage rate. We saw John Wall's usage take a massive hit. He had been at 37% without Beal, went down to 27%. It's possible that he sees his minutes trend up to the mid 30s. I'm talking about John Wall, and be a viable cash game target. Scott Brooks has been really good about putting out about how many minutes to expect from Wall recently. So pay attention to that. If Wall should see mid 30s, I think he's an interesting cash or tournament option. Beal is an interesting option. He was used a little bit differently in the last game, doing a little bit more catching and shooting. Early in the season, they were trying to have him create off the dribble, which he worked on a lot over the summer, but he just wasn't good at it. It's not his game. He's a catch and shoot guy or a straight attack the rim and get to the free throw line guy, and he saw that kind of usage in the game last time. If he does that again, I think it's an interesting spot for him. I think he could get you there on Draftkings in cash or tournaments, but I'm probably not going to play him in cash just because I don't trust it. If I do want to play somebody in cash from Washington, it's probably going to be Otto Porter, playing about 40 minutes a game. His usage is trending up. It was about 16% to start the year. Now it's closer to 19%. Still saw 19% usage in the last game, even though Beal was back. There's no Justice Winslow tonight for the Miami Heat. But like I mentioned earlier, I'm kind of worried about Josh Richardson. I think Josh Richardson is a really good player. I think he's a good defender. And I think that might cap the ceiling here a little bit for Otto in that matchup. So I might not be on him in tournaments. But I think he's just a strong cash play because of his all-around production and the minutes that he's seeing in this game should definitely stay close. Markieff Morris saw 35 minutes last time, has a good matchup with whoever they play at the 4, whether it's Derek Williams or I think it's probably going to be Derek Williams. Good matchup there for him. Still seeing usage off the bench with a second unit. Only saw an 18.7% usage rate last game because he got into foul trouble quickly. Probably won't do that in this game. So I think it's an interesting spot to get on him in tournaments. Because nobody's going to use him, and he could kind of trend toward his ceiling here. Marcin Gortat, going to play a lot of minutes tonight because he's got a matchup with Hassan Whiteside. It's a bad matchup for him. He's not big enough to deal with Whiteside. Wouldn't be surprised to see him foul a bunch and then send him to the line. So the minutes are probably going to trend up, but I just don't think he's at all a cash play. I guess you could play him in tournaments. Like I said, probably going to go for cheaper centers in tournaments. So if I'm playing anybody from Washington in cash, it's probably going to be Otto Porter or John Wall. If I see that John Wall is going to have his minutes bumped up into the mid-30s, I think Beal and Markieff are both interesting tournament options. Don't play anyone from Washington's bench ever unless John Wall and Brad Beal are both out. Moving on to Miami side of the ball here, Dion Waiters is questionable. He strained his groin in the last game. If he plays, which we should know because it's a 7 p.m. tip, I think he's interesting. He's been the usage leader recently for the Miami Heat. Saw pretty high usage again last game, 29.1% usage rate in 35 minutes. Doesn't have the worst matchup. I'm sure he'll be able to get to the rim. And it's still only, I think, 4.6K on DraftKings. If he's going to play, I think he's a cash and a tournament option. I hate playing him because you never know when he's going to go 5 of 20. But Washington's been pretty lenient on the defensive end, 105.9% defensive rating on the year. Definitely a target tonight. He's cheap enough to not kill you if he does give you really poor efficiency, and he is carrying some upside with the usage rate if he does see increased efficiency. Goran Dragic is interesting to me. He's pretty cheap. I think he's 6.3 on DraftKings and 6.5 on FanDuel. He played 35 minutes last game. looked a little rusty to come to start, and then really got it going in the second half. Still saw 20% usage. If Dion Waiters does not play in this game, I'm definitely gonna look to target Dragic in cash games. I think that usage will jump up to the mid 20s at least. And I think he's still probably playable either way because he should be on the floor mid 30s plus tonight and see a usage rate at least in the low 20s, if not mid 20s. Josh Richardson, already touched on him. Think he's interesting. His price is kind of high on Draftkings, so I'm not sure he gives you a great ceiling, but I mean, we've kind of seen it before. He can get you to 40 Draftkings points, especially if Waiters is out tonight. I think he's an interesting cash and tournament target. But I'll probably tend towards Waiters if Waiters plays, just because he shoots the ball more. Richardson is still definitely in play on FanDuel though because he's cheap over there. I think he's actually a really nice leverage play from Seth Curry on FanDuel. Hassan Whiteside, awesome play. Probably the best center play on the board again tonight. We used him last time against Milwaukee. It looked like he was going to hurt us in the first half because he got into foul trouble quickly and then came back and just absolutely dominated the second half, and that's why you play him, because he's just a dominant per minute player. If he sees mid 30s minutes tonight, which I think is very reasonable that he does, he could totally dominate Gortat. If he gets Gortat off the floor, he's going to destroy whoever comes off the Wizards bench to try to lock him down. I don't care if it's Jason Smith. Jason Smith is just going to foul him and put him on the line. That's a matchup they'll probably look to exploit. He actually only saw a 22% usage rate last game, but that could probably creep up a bit here if he kind of gets it going to start, which I think is very reasonable. So there's actually a lot of cash targets here on Miami. Oh, James Johnson needs mentioning too. He's playing about 30 minutes a game. Seeing about a 15% usage rate without Justice Winslow. If Waiters is out, he should probably have like a 30-minute floor and be a guy that can get you there in cash. And I wouldn't even try to talk you off of tournaments. So definitely monitor this game for Waiters. Waiters is it's crazy that you have to worry about whether or not Dion Waiters is going to play in a basketball game in 2016, but here we are. So if Waiters doesn't play, I'm pretty interested in Dragic, Hassan, Richardson, and James Johnson, all of them in cash, whatever kind of works for you. Hassan's obviously got the highest ceiling there, and if Waiters does play, I'm pretty interested in him in cash and Hassan as well. Probably tick down Johnson, Richardson, and Dragic for me. I don't want to play Tyler Johnson. He's just too expensive right now. And I think all of these guys are strong tournament targets if Waiters is out. Moving on to the next game. Gonna be last game of the slate, Dallas and Orlando. This has like a historically low total. It's only 178.5. Orlando's 7.5 point favorites. Not really sure what to do with this game. Kind of watch to see if we get any news on this game. It's a 7 p.m. start. It's a back-to-back for Dallas. Dallas is terrible right now. They're like a JV basketball team. Very possible that Andrew Bogut would sit here, and if he does, it's going to open up a lot of minutes for Dwight Powell. I guess you could play Dwight Powell in cash if Bogut sits. I'm not interested in playing Bogut at all. I really don't want to play any of these guys in cash anywhere. And even like Orlando has an awesome matchup here, but it's tough to play any of their guys in cash because they suck too, and they see really even usage. I think Vucevic and Elfrid Payton would be the most interesting targets from Orlando's side of the ball. I think they're good tournament plays just because Dallas is so bad. They should see ceiling games here in this matchup. So if I'm playing anybody from Orlando, it's going to be Vucevic or Elfrid. I don't want to play Fournier. He's been bad. Moving on to Dallas' side of the ball, we still saw Harrison Barnes be a usage monster, 33.4% in his last game in 34 minutes. Could trend upwards in efficiency a little bit here with a much better matchup against Orlando. I think he's an interesting target in tournaments on FanDuel because he's still got a profitable price point there if he should hit a ceiling, and I don't think anybody's going to play him after that horrible game they had last time. I'm still interested in Seth Curry and cash on FanDuel because he's so cheap and you know the minutes are going to be there, even if they suck. And that's probably going to happen again, but they should have a little more offensive success today than they did last time. But I'll still probably look to move off of Curry in tournaments because I don't think he's carrying a ceiling. Interesting punt is Jonathan Gibson. He's minimum salary on both sites. 20 minutes in the last game. If Wes Matthews would sit, load this guy up. He's going to play 30 minutes plus. He saw a crazy usage rate at 32.1% in his 20 minutes last time. And if Wes Matthews sits, he's going to see a bunch of shots, bunch of minutes, great play. Same thing with Justin Anderson. Saw 32 minutes last game, had a 20.1% usage rate. If Wes and Bogut would sit here, I think Curry, Harrison Barnes, Gibson, Justin Anderson, and Dwight Powell are all reasonable targets in tournaments. And at least on FanDuel, where they're priced more attractively, I could see playing any of them in cash. I'm not really interested in any of these guys outside of Gibson or Justin Anderson in cash on Draftkings, but I guess they're okay tournament plays. And that is it for the slate. So I will end it there. I will hang around to talk in the chat afterwards. So thank you everybody for tuning in very much. I appreciate it. Best of luck in all of your games tonight. And I probably won't be back tomorrow, be doing some NFL stuff, but hopefully we'll come back and have another strong week next week. So like I said, thanks for tuning in and good luck everyone.